You see this band-aid here on my finger? Yeah, I actually got a giant gash from putting this guy together. Only me, man, with these anime figures. I don't get it. Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today with a video response. I've actually never really done this before, but hey, first time for everything. So the video I'm responding to is one by a good friend of mine, Luke Stevens, who created a video called Something Seems Off with Todd Howard. It really gained a lot of traction as someone who has discussed things with Todd Howard in the past, has interacted with him, and has also covered him for a lot of years through interviews and also just studying his career, his mannerisms. I thought personally I'd be suited to make a response video to this topic, but I need to emphasize the friend part with Luke before I get into anything, because this isn't a negative response video. This isn't like an exposed video, okay? Here's me on his show, here's him on my show. We're friends. I like the video. The link to it will be in the description down below. Please watch it. It's actually a really good edit too. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't take this the wrong way. I just thought it was a great topic, inspired by this video, wanted to highlight it today. So let's get into it. Luke's video highlighted some of Todd's mannerisms, weird flexes, and overall ability to dodge tough questions while pumping himself or a product up, eventually coming to the conclusion after the just over 9-minute video span of saying pretty much that Todd had become a different person compared to when he was on top of the world back in 2015. Like there was a lacking of confidence, something was just off, and he used multiple points during the Todd Howard and Elon Musk panel to highlight exactly what he was talking about. Now for me, in my video, there were really only two major points in this panel I noticed something quite different about Todd Howard emotionally than usual, and I think it's quite easy to narrow down why he acted this way in both those instances. And I remember while watching the panel, you know, of course there were those awkward moments.
You guys are friends, right?
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah.
But these two things really just stuck out to me as answers that were A, really obvious but dodging, or B, compensating. And compensation is going to sort of be the name of the game in this video. And I don't mean to emotionally discuss someone in a video, because I know as someone who's seen it happen to me before, it can get a little annoying, but I think it's a topic that should be covered because this is a prominent figure in the industry and one that I've covered quite a bit. And when you notice a change sort of substantial like this, you definitely want to get into why it may be happening. So I want to talk about the, we'll call it Todd Weird Flex, where Todd feels obliged to mention on stage, you know what, just watch.
We finally connected, I think it was when I bought my Tesla.
Yeah.
And somebody, I went into the store and actually you don't buy Tesla, you order them online when you go there. And you know in your PC, when you select Ultra for all the settings?
Yeah.
I click that button when ordering a Tesla. And then we connected.
See what I mean by like compensation? Like what was the point in mentioning there all the Tesla Ultra options, right? Now, this was an answer to a question from Jeff Keighley about how Elon and Todd had met. And I imagine, given Elon's career, many people have checked off all the highest priced options for a Tesla. And I doubt he goes and shakes the hand of every single human being who does such a thing, okay? It seemed like Todd compensating for one of two things. Number one, he's on stage with Elon Musk, who in the scheme of things is a much larger, more successful man. He has quite literally started shaping the world and our future, and it's very exciting stuff that Elon is working on. Meanwhile, Todd works on video games. So, you know, a lot of people are there for Elon, not Todd, where Todd's usually like the video game industry superstar, at least one of them next to other names like Hideo Kojima. The other compensation is one of, I feel, someone's pride being hurt, because we know what happened with 76, and we're talking about Bethesda Game Studios, a team that's never really released since like, what, Daggerfall, the original Elder Scrolls even maybe, a bad game. And they released the worst game of the entire year and one of the worst of the generation last year. So that's gonna damage someone's pride. That's gonna damage someone's ego. Not even like he was a really cocky monster before that, but that's gonna hurt you a little bit because you gotta face the noise, time in, time out, over and over again. You're constantly answering that same cycle of questions because everyone wants to know for their own websites, because Todd naturally did interviews before this of, hey man, what happened with 76? How's your team responding to it? So I understand why he emotionally responded in this way, if that compensation is a safe assumption, which I think it is given his answers. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it all unravels. The next point I want to highlight is actually a fan question during the panel at the end, when Todd and Elon were asked What was your biggest failure and how did you grow from it? I want you to take a listen to Todd Howard's response here.
This is a question for both of you, actually. You mentioned failures before. What's the actual biggest failure that you've gone through to get to where you are?
Question? Who goes first?
That's a tricky question. It's funny, it's an interview question I ask people.
Right.
And I don't...
You don't know your response.
People who are in the military have the best failures, meaning like they crash satellites and tanks and things like that. I do not have a good answer for that.
I mean, we blew up 3 rockets in the beginning.
I guess for me, it'd have to be the games we made in the period after Daggerfall. We made a bunch of games that they didn't land, and the company was gonna go out of business. And we got a lifeline, and then like, hey, let's do this game Morrowind. This is what we should do, and that saved the company.
This is what Luke was sort of getting onto in his video of how Todd would take a tough question and turn it into something positive, something you had to be happy about, feel good about, like here's a feel-good story, when I'd imagine the toughest challenge really was Fallout 76. At one point, yes, Bethesda Game Studios had their back against the wall. They went all in on Morrowind because if they were gonna fail, they may as well have failed trying, right? And they succeeded, and Morrowind saved the company. But in the terms of actual biggest failures and recovering from them, everyone in that room right away knew the answer. But Todd called it a tricky question and pondered deeply. Even though in previous interviews, like I said, this is where my aspect comes in because I've studied the guy for years. He's instantly, right off the bat, shared his story about Morrowind. It's one of the ones I think he's most proud of because he came in and pretty much turned that studio around, saved them, and they became one of the best RPG developers for many years. And suddenly he had to ponder on it, probably because he was weighing out the decision. Do I talk about 76? Am I throwing too many people under the bus? That's what happens there. And it's interesting because this kind of goes back to damaged pride once again, where I had heard murmurs from multiple sources, mind you, that there was a lot of arguing behind the scenes prior to the Bethesda E3 showcase on whether or not they should confront the 76 issue in a more apologetic manner of saying, thank you for your feedback, this is valid criticism, if they should just go on stage and talk about the new DLC coming to 76 and act like nothing had ever happened. And like I said, there was those arguments that Todd and some others had believed that pretty much they shouldn't go out and be super apologetic, and I think that's probably because of some sense of pride that, hey, let's just turn around, bringing it up again doesn't make sense for them. I sort of understand their perspective, even if I wouldn't have agreed with it. And once again, this is just murmuring, so I cannot confirm it, but still, it's something valid to the conversation I think is supported by some actions that we've seen throughout this video where Todd was compensating, we saw Todd sort of dodging, obviously, Fallout 76 focused questions. It was really, really strange to see. So what I noted here was a different Todd Howard in the sense that he may have been humbled and was compensating, especially given the illustrious company that he was in. I also do want to point out, in all fairness, that it felt like when watching this panel over again for this video that some of Todd's jokes just didn't land quite like they used to. He was always a sarcastic guy. I mean, I'm talking about the guy that when I met for the first time ever in 2016, I was so fucking nervous, and this guy literally called me out for clickbait, like straight up off the bat. He was quoting my videos, he was talking about my titles versus my thumbnails, like he called me out for clickbait. This guy has a strange, but I thought, great sense of humor, and sometimes that doesn't resonate with folks and sometimes it doesn't land, and during this panel especially, it didn't land. And meanwhile, I don't want to study some of his mannerisms, but you could see like a lack of comfort in the way Todd was, wiggling around a little bit, something that you don't see quite often from him. So I agree with Luke that I thought something was off. I don't want to overanalyze it, but I more so wanted to offer the general themes I feel as to why he was acting that way, which was compensation and the company he was in, where maybe he was feeling a little bit less than, which is normal. I mean, I work in an industry just like him where I think I'm very successful for my age and for my own personal standards, but I'll go on Instagram, I'll go on Twitter, I'll go on Facebook, and I'll see someone traveling the world doing something absolutely insane that I could only dream of doing. And I think to myself, man, I've got so much left to do. I've got so much left to learn. I'm really not that successful. And you start to feel bad about yourself. And that's why social media detox is so important. I don't mean to turn this into a philosophical thing, but it's normal for all of us humans to start to feel that way, where we start to feel less than because of social media, which is geared to sometimes celebrate people's successes. But when you see that constant celebration, you start to feel like even if yesterday you did something big, that it's not that big of a deal. And maybe Todd, as a human, was feeling some of that. So I think in all fairness, I understand his emotions during this panel if any of our assumptions are accurate. I don't want to go on too long about it because then it just starts to get stretched out and we go into the overdone speculation department. And when it's talking about another human, I'd like to be a little more careful about that. But I know how important Todd is to myself, my channel, but also to a lot of you guys. And some have wondered why he was a little different during this panel. I think it's just, he's been humbled to a degree and he's coping with that, especially when you got to face the music time in, time out. So those are just my thoughts. Once again, big thanks to Luke for the great video that I'll have linked in the description down below. I really enjoyed the watch and I highly recommend you give it a look yourself. Also, if you guys think any differently of this video, maybe you disagree with some of Todd's mannerisms, and then fire away in the comments down below on if this is just us overanalyzing it. It could be very well possible, but I'd love to hear from you, ladies and gentlemen, so please fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.